Patty Ann here. Today I'm going to show you from start to finish how to make a placemat just like this. I've made this, it's double-sided with an embroidered applique on one side, but you can just use vinyl if you don't have an embroidery machine, or you could use a zigzag if you have zigzag on your regular sewing machine. The opposite side doesn't have anything on it, so you could turn it over like that if it's not near Christmas. Although I don't think this tree really calls out Christmas to me. Since I live in the mountains and it's really, really foresty, this could be used any time in my neck of the woods. But anyway, some of what you'll need today obviously is some fabric. I've made mine double-sided, as I said, and I cut these pieces 14 inches wide by 19 inches long. So both sides, 14 inches by 19 inches. And then for my little applique, I've used some fabric, and it's really limp. It's even limper than this because this happens to be some batik fabric, and I think batik fabric works exceptionally well when you're cutting things with your portrait or your Cricut or your Cameo. But what I've done was I used regular fabric, and on that fabric, before I used it, look at this. Can you hear this? It's almost like paper. I used this product called Material Magic. It's kind of expensive. When I bought this a few years ago, it was $14.99. I'm not sure if that's still what the price is, but I'll have a link for it down below so you can see what it is. But this makes your any kind of fabric go from just being a light, you know, like, I wish I had one right here. A piece of fabric. Okay, here's one. Just a piece of fabric like this, little flimsy, like this, to being one like this that's, like I said, paper. The other thing that I do next, though, is, let me move my placemat out of the way now, is I'm going to also put Steam a Seam 2 on the back of this. Steam a Seam 2 Light. So I've already cut it, and I guess hopefully this is going to be long enough. Let me double check, because I've already cut out one of my shapes that I needed. Oh yeah, that's plenty long. Okay, so what you do with Steam a Seam Light is you peel off the backing. So how do you know what the backing is? Well, this piece has no stickum on it, so I throw that piece away. And then this piece is sticky on the one side. So I'm just going to adhere this to the back of my fabric like this. And now instead of throwing that piece away, I should have saved it, because I like to use those a lot of times. Let me get one out of here. For my parchment paper. Because see, this is longer than my fabric, and it would stick to my little mat here, and I don't want that to happen. Okay, and I use my favorite little iron here that I have. It's right here. I'll have this link down below for you too. I've had this for years and years. One time when I went to go visit my daughter out in Colorado, I left it there for her because she could use it for her crafts too. So I finally had to buy myself another one because I really love this little iron. It's so handy with this handle like this. And it fits nicely when you're doing things. See how that stuck to that? And I would have done that on my pressing surface. So I'm just gonna get a pair of scissors, whichever ones I can find right here, and just kind of cut this off falling to fabric. I actually have these duck-billed scissors that I use sometimes if I'm doing applique, and I've not cut the applique piece out with my silhouette or my portrait. Okay, so I'm just going to iron this one more time to make sure it's well adhered. I have that little mat I like to put this on too. Maybe you can see right here. I don't have to worry about it. Okay. So then the next thing you do is just peel this off. And I love using this product because I'm peeling off another piece that's not sticky, but I'm left with a piece that's sticky. And I love this because it works perfectly for when you're going to do cutting. So here's my mat that I'm going to use in my portrait. So I'll just put this on here like this, sticky side to sticky side of my mat, like that. And then I just squeeze it on a little bit And then I'll stick this into my portrait machine. Let's see if I can bring that down here so you can see that. Certainly can. Okay, so I'll put this into my portrait. Okay, on my portrait, I have my machine set up. Well, let me show you on my silhouette. Let's see. I have it set up to fabric thin, cut, auto blade. I have my knife blade depth at 7, my force at 25, my speed at 5, and I'm just going to do one pass since this fabric has been treated so well. So I'm just going to hit send. Hopefully there'll be plenty of room. Okay, and before I take this totally off, I'm going to lift this to see how well it cut, and look at that. Like a dream, right? Really nice. So I'm going to eject this, and I can put my, turn this off for now, and I'll move it out of the way. Okay. All right. So next thing I'll do is this, and look at that. I mean, that cut perfectly, didn't it? Beautiful. Okay, so maybe what you can see, see if you can, if I zoom in a little bit, up here, I just got done putting one on here with this machine, and you can see maybe that it says finished sending. So I'm going to get ready to do another one, and after this is done, of course, I'll take this off. So I can show you that right now, to take this off of this machine. And I love this machine. I do have a big boomer. You may have seen in some of my other videos. I have a really fancy schmancy embroidery machine, as well as a fancy schmancy sewing machine. But I'm showing you today how you can do this easily with these budget, more budget friendly machines. Matter of fact, this PE 770 you can get probably for around $300 now. You need to look on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, maybe Craigslist, because this is a little bit of an older model, but the difference between that PE 800 is this part is colored now, but we're okay without the color. It works just fine. And I'm not even sure what other bells and whistles it might have, but this little baby right here, it runs like a champion. Just looking to see, I had some other things that I stitched with it. Well, I'll show you that later. And anyway, here's how I take it out. I just go ahead and, let's see, I gotta lift my presser foot back there. Then I just pull this little button right here, and I'm doing this from the wrong side, but you just bring it out like that, and this front side of this is ready to go. Okay, what I used, well, let me scroll back out a little bit. Whoopsie. Okay, what I used in here was tearaway stabilizer. So I can just turn this over like this, and let's make you come down a little bit lower. Hopefully you won't fall over. Okay, this is tearaway stabilizer. So I like to put my finger in where I'm tearing from, just kind of tear this away. And this is called stabilizer because it makes it so that when you're doing things, it doesn't get all puckery. Okay, there's that. And I can remove this center part too, because it is also tearaway. So I just scratch my fingernail on it to get it started, and then I just begin tearing it out as well. Because then you're left with a piece that just feels wonderful. The hand of it is what we call it when you're talking about weaving. Not sure if you talk about the hand of things when you're sewing, but the hand means how does it feel in your hand when you go like this? Does it feel stiff? how does it feel? And this feels really good. Okay, almost done. A few more little tears to do. There we go. Okay, so that is done. So what I can do now is just turn this over if I want to, and just give it another little press with my handy dandy little iron that I have. And isn't that cute? I think it's adorable. I have so many wires, I gotta be careful I don't start anything on fire. Okay, move this mat. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is locate this where I want it to be. This is the piece that I cut out that you saw me cut with my portrait. It's sticky on one side, but it's repositionable. I'm going to have it be about like this one is. However, this one has already had its 1/4 inch seam allowances taken up and a little bit more maybe. So I'm going to put this, well, you can measure things if you want to. I'm not big into measuring usually, but I'll measure this. So it's about, I'm thinking that maybe it was about 1 inch from the bottom. So about 1 inch from the bottom. So right there's about good. And then from the outer edge, about 1 inch, 1.25 inches, something like that. So I put it more like this, 1.25 inches, something like that. They don't have to be exactly the same because, you know, they're not going to be exactly side by side. So a little bit of this will be taken up in the seam allowance, and then it will be that far away. So let's see if that kind of matches. So that's about 1.25 inches, and that's about 1 inch. So I think I want to move it over just a tiny bit more this way. About 1 inch. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. I'm happy with that. So that's where I'm going to put it, but until I'm not quite ready to do that yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of this. So I'm going to just fold this up so it meets the top and just kind of press right there to make a little mark in the center. And then I'm going to go like this, side to side, and make a little mark in the center. So I can barely see that, but I can take one of these disappearing ink pens that I like to use, the Dritz dual purpose marking pen, and I'm going to use this one that's air and water soluble and just kind of go over those cross hatches so I know about where they were. Okay, just like that. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, let's get my finished one out of the way again. I'll take this, which is my tearaway stabilizer, and I'm going to place that over the bottom of the hoop. This little thing that can tighten and loosen the hoop will be towards me at the bottom. I'm going to place that like that. Move a few of these things out of the way for a moment. Move my iron. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put that first down here on my mat. On top of that, I'll put the tearaway stabilizer. And then on top of that, I'm going to put my fabric with my thing temporarily on here, with my tree temporarily on there. So now what I'm going to do is, you get these that comes with your hoops. You use this in here and then just kind of fit this in. And what I'm attempting to do is, right here are the crosshairs of this sheet of Mylar or whatever this is. And I want the center point of here to match the center point of the mark that I made. So right now it's way off. My center point's here and this is here. So I know I need to move this up this way. Up, whoops, not probably that far, and a little to the left. So let's see how that's going to look when I put this in the hoop. Okay, still needs to go further to the left. And if I put it in the hoop there, all right, that's just about spot on, and I'm pretty dang happy with how that looks. So I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that it appears as though my lines are straight, and I'm going to kind of line them up with one of the lines here. Okay, and then I can just press this in. If I can't get it to press in, I might need to loosen this a little bit more. Okay, so I can press this in, and as you can see, maybe my crosshairs that I drew are pretty much spot on with the crosshair on here. So now, after I have that in there the way I want it to be, I'm going to tighten this back up. Finger tight. And I will hope that this is pretty taut, pretty, like almost like a trampoline. I'm going to take this back off because now I'm going to turn my machine back on again, and I'm going to go ahead and begin embroidering this. Okay. So what it tells me to do is please touch the display, and then it says that the carriage of the embroidery unit will move. So I'll say okay. The next thing I have to do is to find my design that I want to use. And if you'll notice over here, I have a USB stick in here. That's because my image is saved on that. So I'm going to go to the USB, and it says it's retrieving the information. And once it's done that, I can use these arrows to go back and forth to find my tree. And there's the tree I want to use right there. Once I've selected that, I just hit the up arrow on there and it's ready to go. So I'm going to place this back in, or into my unit, into my machine. Again, I will just go ahead and check this out, push this here, that, and move this fabric back out of the way. I always like to lift up to make sure that's not loose, and it's not, so it's perfect. So then I'll put my presser foot down, and notice that this light turned to green, which means it's ready to go. So I'll just hit that, and it will start stitching. And what it's doing first is it's stitching out for me the placement guide, so I know where to place this tree that we cut out. Once this is all done with the placement guide, I can remove the hoop, and as long as I don't take my fabric out of the hoop, it's fine. I can remove the hoop and place this where it needs to go. Okay, so it's going to say that that part's done, or it's going to finish. And now I can take this out by bringing this in and pull that up and out. Whoopsie, I forgot. You got to put up the presser foot too. Okay, and then here's my design. I don't know if you can see it at all. Let's see if I scroll in a little bit, if it helps you to see it. Okay, so here's my design. You can maybe see it stitched out a bit. And what I'm going to do now is to try to place this perfectly on those lines. And the more closely you can put this on here, the better your stitching will be. Okay. All right, so that looks pretty good to me. All right, and now I'll use my handy dandy little iron again that I love. This is another reason why I like this, is because I can now just go ahead and hit that with the iron and kind of melt it into place. And it's staying right where I need it to stay. So then all I have to do is put this back in my machine. And again, I love this little machine, y'all. Y'all need to be looking for these. If you don't have an embroidery machine, they are on sale right now. Like I said, check Marketplace, anywhere like that. There's so much you can do with this little machine. I also have some links of where you can purchase it, maybe if I can find it for you down below, because they're kind of hard to find, but you just have to keep your eyes out. No, I didn't have that right. It's kind of hard to work from the side. Sorry. All right, there we go. It's really not difficult to get that on there. It's just that I'm kind of like working from the side. So we're going to continue on. I'll put my presser foot back down. Notice that the light turned green again. I can click on that light to say go, and it's going to start going again. This time it's going to stitch around to hold the applique in place. Although I probably could bypass this step because our applique is actually ironed into place. Okay, what I did while that was stitching was I went ahead and cut a piece of batting, very thin batting. You could also use felt if you wanted to, from like Joann's, to put inside. I just like to add just a little bit of something in the center of it. So these are the pieces I'm going to sew together when this is finished. So what you do is you have the batting, let me show you down here. The batting is on the wrong side of the fabric, and then this is the right side. And what I'm going to do is put right sides together with this piece and this, and then sew around the outer edge. And I'll show you that shortly. Okay, as you can see, this says it's finished sewing, so we can say okay. And I can take this one off by lifting up the presser foot first, and then coming over here, pulling that little button in close, and taking this right off like that. And it's ready to go. So here's how cute it looks. Like that. Okay. Now I think in the last one I showed you how I took away the tearaway stabilizer. So let me get that one. Well, let me just tear this one away again. It doesn't take long. Okay. Now I can just give this one more little press if I want to. Good. All right, now I'm going to position these things together. But remember, I said I need right sides together of my good fabric. So that means I'm going to flip this over like this, and I'm going to put right sides together like this. Now it's going to like this. All right, so I did use quite a few pins before. So let's see. Just use these little butterfly pins. I think I can remove this. All right, so I'll just begin pinning. And what I did on the other one was I went ahead and left an opening so that I could turn it, but I think I'll leave the opening on this side over here. So I'm going to sew all along this part. Of course, before I sew, I am going to go over and make sure I trim this a little bit because I noticed that they're not exactly the same. So I must have taken two different pieces, but I'll just make sure I trim them up so they're the same, so that when I sew them, I don't mess up. So again, these are right sides together. And I like to use a lot of pins just because I don't want it to shift, because I'm not using a walking foot. A walking foot might be a good thing to use, but I'm a little too lazy to get mine out. So I'm just pinning more. I love these butterfly pins. I like having something like that to hold on to. Oh, I said I was going to leave an opening over here, right? So I better make a little bit of a line here. So I remember to stop, because So I'll stop right there. I may forget if I don't mark it. Okay, the next thing, like I said, I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of this off so that it matches. Well, I should have some longer scissors over here, and I think I do right over here. It may work better. So I'm just going to go ahead. I could use my rotary cutter, which is my preference, because that's really makes a nice edge for everything. Matter of fact, I think I will. I'll be right back. Okay, my machine is all set up. I have a stitch length of 3.5, and I'm just going to start here where I had marked that space that I want to leave open. So what I'm doing is just a presser foot width. Like the presser foot is right up against the side of my fabric. Maybe you can see that. And that's how I'm going to judge everywhere where I go. So I'll put that down and I'll just hit my foot pedal a little bit, do a few forward, my foot pedal, and then do a couple back to lock it into place, and then just continue on. So I don't want to go over any needles, so any that I come to that are close, I'm just going to remove. Okay, and so I'm just going to start stitching along, and in a moment I'm going to show you one of the features I really like about this machine. This machine's older and it's not available, but there are some just like it. But one of the things I do like is that there's this little lever right here that I'm pointing to, and it can determine how fast or slow your machine will go. Even though you push the pedal to the metal or you put your gas pedal all the way to the floor, if you have it set back on turtle, it's just going to go that speed. And I like that because then it helps me to be more accurate. Okay, the placemat has been totally sewn. So what I'm going to do now is to make sure that there aren't any little threads, black or white ones, because when I turn this inside out, they'll show up. The next thing I'm doing is cutting off the corners just at an angle, making sure I don't go through the thread or the stitch lines. But this will just make turning easier, and I'll have a better point when I go to turn this. So I'll just stick my hand in that little opening, remember, that we left. I'll put it between the two pieces of the buffalo plaid fabric. Stick my hand in there, push my pointer finger all the way down into one of the points, and then grab it and start dragging it out carefully through that area that I sewed. Sometimes it takes a little bit of finagling to get it to work. And here it comes, gently pulling it out. Careful not to rip it, but remember we did back stitch at both parts of the opening to make sure it was strong. So the placemat is just about totally done now, except I have to do some top stitching on it. But of course, before I do that, I am going to make sure that the points are pushed out as far as they can be, just using my pointer finger. All 4 points, and then I'll kind of even drag my hand down along the side of the placemat. Okay, that's done, and I'm just going to give the edges of this a really nice press so that they're really flat, which will make it easier for me when I go to sew. I'm just going to go all the way around, just heating that up, flattening it out. When I come to that opening, I am going to tuck it under and try to line it up so it's exactly the same as what came before or after the opening. So basically trying to make the seam allowance the same, or the part that's tucked under the same. I don't know how to say it, but hopefully you know what I mean. And I like this method because then you don't have to do any hand stitching, and I'm not big on hand stitching. So just going all the way around and making sure everything is nice. Now remember, you will see those lines on there that were made with this marker, but they will go out away depending on which side I used. One side goes away with just air over time, and the other side goes away with water. Okay, we're ready to start stitching it now. And I am going to line up this time the side of my placemat with one of the legs, the inside of the leg on the right, my right. Okay, before, originally when I did this, I had the presser foot, when I was stitching the placemat together originally, I had the placemat over to the very edge of the presser foot, and that was my guide. This time I'm using one of the legs of the presser foot as my guide, so I'm really straight and accurate. And I'll have my machine set on kind of slow. You know, remember I like that button because that helps me to be accurate and make really beautiful straight stitches. At some point now here, I'm going to speed it up a little bit because it is being a little bit too much of a turtle. We're just about done with the total placemat. When I get to the corner, as you can see I'm pointing out, I'm going to stop because I know where on my presser foot I can line things up. And if I didn't get there exactly, I can use what's called the flywheel there to move it one more stitch forward. Then I leave my needle down in my fabric, just lift up the presser foot lifter, and I just pivot and continue sewing. Okay, I hope you liked watching how these three machines can work together. I also have another video which I will link at the end of this using the Cricut machine instead of my portrait. So didn't these placemats turn out just beautifully? I love them and I can't wait to use them on my holiday table. So again, thanks for joining me. Check out my links down below. I appreciate it when you use them. It gives me just a little teeny tiny commission and it helps to keep Patty Ann's Place going. So again, thanks a lot. Bye.